it'd be great to have you come up and say something if you'd like to say something about Bruce or the show or whatever's been going on here. But just like to say it's pretty hard to imagine seeing so many excellent looking people at the same place in one time. And the food was fabulous. Let's give it up for those. So anybody that wants to tell a story or something, if it gets too long like my eulogy, I'll cut you off. But other than that, feel free to come on up and say something really nice about Bruce. I can tell you something nice about Bruce. There was a time where a couple of my friends were arguing who was the best fiddle player. And if you know anything about it, we have some fantastic fiddle players that are around here, and they play for us frequently. And Bruce looked at me and he says, you know, I never think of it that way. I just am glad for whoever's going to play. They're all fantastic. You don't have to judge who's the best. The best one's the one that's with you. Oh, I thought we had a taker. Ralph, you got anything you want to say? Microphone shy. How about the siblings? Ready to say a little something about Bruce? Tell a story from the youth? He did tell me that they used to take Playboy magazines when they were kids, and they'd take them down to a bridge and they'd trade them to the Hutterite kids for Hutterite wine. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom McHugh.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm trying to think. I can't remember when Bruce and I met, but I was a long-haired, commie-type pinko fag with hair down to here, and I looked like an Indian. Well, there's some relation there. But I come into town, everybody thought I was a Mexican. So Bruce and I had a motorcycle, and he liked to ride on the back of anything that he didn't have to steer. And he was wanted to go visit a girlfriend up in Wakanda. And I said, well, I'll go up to the pit, you go up to her house. And we got on the motorcycle and got across Highway 50 here, which they were building it at that time. And then Highway Patrol pulls us over. Trooper Bussy, he was the local, I can't remember his first name. He was a pretty nice guy. But he pulled us over because we didn't have any pots on our head. So he wanted to know, I was the only one that had a license or ID. Bruce didn't have one on him because he had changed his pants. And so he said, well, why don't you guys go back and get some pots on your head? So we went back to the house and we put pots on it. Do you have that picture? Someone's got the picture of us. But we went by him again with our pots on our head. So we were always marked from that point on. So thank you.
Who's next? I can tell you a story about playing pinochle out at Mike Hill and Amy Phil's house. We were out there playing pinochle, and sometimes we just have to stop because Bruce and Amy really, really like to talk about art. So we just take a nice long break and then come back about a half hour later, and they'd still be talking about art, but we'd interrupt and have our game. Keith is next.
Thanks, Mojo. I just want to say that Bruce would have been really happy with today. This had his name and soul written all over it. And so these kind of people that help do this today do not relish praise, but they're going to get some. Dar, you did a great job, and there's probably a nicer way to say that about a pastor, but a great job, Bart. Mojo, I heard his name quite often, but I didn't really get to meet him until I went to see Bruce while he was still in Vermilion, and he was I think you were driving a red convertible. Is that a red car? Okay. But anyway, that's the first time I met him, and it was really, he was kind of like Bruce described him. And Bruce could describe somebody pretty well. And so, but Mojo, your eulogy was something special, very unique, and Bruce was smiling all the way through that. We had a host of professional musicians here, and for those of you that may not be familiar with some of the players today, they've been true friends to Bruce, but they're talking. They gave Bruce a lot of nice comments about it being a legend. These guys that played for you today and sang for you today, they are legends. And they're going to continue to be legends. And so, I think they're going to even play later tonight in Vermilion, some of them. But they're fun. Bruce and I shared a bed for 18 years. It's a small farm. There were 2 bedrooms upstairs. Bruce and I had one, and my sister had another one, and Brad was not around yet. And so and it was not a queen size bed. And when we were young, we had no problem sleeping together. We got to start getting into high school, and this artificial line became a real deal. We drew that line on the bed. You stay over there. And every once in a while at night, you roll around, and one of us would wake up with the other one's leg over it, and we'd just have a fit. Like, you stay on your side. So and Bruce and I would lay awake at night a lot and talk. And in Bruce's middle years and my middle years, we didn't see each other a lot. He was doing his thing, and I was doing mine. And but in the last 10, 15 years, we got back together got reconnected. Bruce liked to talk about the past, and he liked to visit small towns. And one of the things he really liked doing was to get in the car with no idea where we were going, and would drive gravel roads till we run into Vollen or Bridgewater or Salem or Emory. One day we went to all the towns we played basketball against. Now that's kind of sad, but we had a great time. And we went fishing a couple times together. And even when you're up in years, on the way down, you're going to catch fish. Now we're going to get them today. Yep. We never caught fish. I tell you, we just caught weeds, but we had a good time. Bruce was unique, and anybody that was lucky enough to have him for a friend, he brought out something in you didn't know. He was able to do that. He could connect with somebody, and just the way his personality was, and I've had a few people tell me this, that he was so unique that they felt things they didn't ever felt before they met him. And he had that impact on people. And I always envied that. He never forgot a person's name. If you were introduced to Bruce, Bruce would remember who you were. He could see you 3 years later and he'd know your name, even if you didn't see him in between and he didn't know you that well. He always concerned about other people. Dart talked a little bit about the pin setters. It was a painting of Dickie and Ivan Stutzenbecker. And they come from a poor family, and they had no money. And those boys would set pins. And one of the pictures shows the boy with a broken arm. So he was in a cast. A bowling ball broke his arm. And Bruce always stuck up for people that needed to be stuck up for. Even when he was in high school, grade school, if somebody was giving somebody a hard time, he was there on that other person's behalf. He did it through his adulthood. I think people always appreciated that. Those of you that are close friends with him know that. He does not let somebody be put down. He'll be there to settle that thing. And he was a good brother. We're going to miss him. Today was as good as it can get, and I'm very grateful to the people that took the time. He had 3 decent women in his life, and his daughter, Emily, and Michaeline, and Sharon, and he was very fortunate for that. They learned how to make things work together, and they helped his life. They helped him be Bruce Preheim. So we're going to miss him, but he'll always live in our hearts. Thank you.
I say that calls for another round of applause for Keith. Come on. You ready? Well, our next guest is coming up to tell a Bruce story. I'd just like to tell you that if you get a hold of either Emily or Sharon or Michaeline, they will probably have a line on getting a copy of the eulogy. And Ralph's making sure that's going to happen. So, up next. Is that too high? Here, I think we can put it down. How's that?
Hi. I'm Gretchen Ford. I was a former resident of near Spink. And my first thing I want to talk about is a memory I had of February 1976. It was cold. We were at our old farmhouse. And my eyes were closed because I was told to close my eyes. And then up pops Bruce out of a big cardboard box covered in only shaving cream, saying, "Happy birthday!" Anyway, I'll never forget that. The next thing is something that my friend, our friend Maria Hansa Ogren sent because she can't be here. And she asked me to read it, and I don't normally do this kind of thing. So, light on his feet dancer, golden gloves boxer, not too shabby pool player, drank most everyone else under the table at the God's Eye, which he then slept until noon the day after, and woke wondering just what he would need to apologize for and to whom. Couldn't help but sketch so much of who and what he saw, including ghosts from days past. Couldn't go past musicians without adding his voice to the mix. Couldn't go past a woman without flirting. Couldn't forget his twin brother and the shadow he cast. Couldn't say no to another beer. Would never forget June and her haunting voice, but would love again, celebrate life, and battle his demons on the grand stage of life till he was totally spent. So I raise one to you, Bruce, a complex, sometimes larger than life warrior soul, a Don Quixote of his time, Maria Hansa Ogren.
Thank you, Gretchen. Next up.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm one of Bruce's nieces. I just wanted to talk about growing up. He was really a good sport because I'd ask him to draw me a lot, which was kind of awkward. But he would always do that for my sister and I. Our whole family was just amazed by his creativity and his artwork. He once came to Wayne State College and gave a talk to a class, and our whole family came and watched. And I think that was kind of uncomfortable for him because he was supposed to be teaching, and we're there watching, like, cheering him on. The other thing he always did every Easter, when we get together for our Easter egg hunts with the family, he would give the talk before. And I don't remember everything he always said, but the biggest thing was no pushing, no shoving, no hitting. And I tried to replicate this last year, but I'm no Bruce, so it wasn't as good as he always did. But I'll always remember that, and we'll always love him.
Here, we'll move it down for you.
Hi. Okay, so I'm just here to say that Grandpa Bruce, he was really special to me. We had a really good bond. And I wish I got to spend some more time with him. But he's happy now. He's not anywhere else. He's somewhere where none of us can ever imagine. Thank you.
Nice job, Josie. That was outstanding. And he lives on in all of our hearts. Anybody else? There we go. This is Bruce's sister, Monica.
Josie, you summed it up so well. You're so brave. He would be so proud of you. That's just amazing. I don't know what to say, but I felt I owed it to my brother to come up here. When I was a little kid, I had these twin brothers who were 4 years older than me, who I looked up to and I admired, and I wanted to be a boy because they were boys. And it just was, I never was jealous of them, but I was always so proud of them, and that I had these twin brothers. And Bruce, I'm just going to talk about him today because I still have my Keith here, but Bruce, I didn't want to let either one of them down. So whatever they wanted me to do, I would try. So Bruce was this crazy daredevil guy jumping off high dives and doing these flips and all this stuff. And I had to go up there because if I didn't, I'd let him down. Now, he didn't know how big the deal that was to me, but it was. So I'd go up and I'd suck my, scaredness inside of me and just do it. He was my coach for a while in softball and talked me into being the catcher, and I didn't want to catch, but I did it because he wanted me to. He taught me never to be scared of a fly ball, so I learned to catch fly balls. And just in the later years, we were playing beanbag, if you don't know this, that's another thing on his accolade list. He was the fantastic beanbag, or whatever you guys call it, corn, whatever. Anyway, so we were there at the Yankton doing this, and I'm not bragging. I can be on sometimes and be okay because I have to be because Bruce was there. So I'm his partner, and I'm nailing him that day, and he was just like ecstatic. He had been diagnosed with cancer, but he was just over the moon. He said, "Yep," and I said, "What could I do better?" And he was giving me hints. Well, that night on my phone, he texted and said, "Well, are you training? Are you going to bed at the right time? Are you drinking your fluids and all that stuff?" And so he was a coach to the end. What I think about is what Bruce did for me was he inspired me to, and I don't do it like I should, to enjoy every moment given to us, because I never met anybody who just got the biggest kick out of drinking a cup of coffee or seeing somebody or just stopping and talking. He hated the phone stuff because that wasn't the real thing. He just loved everybody, people. That's why you saw all the drawings. They were always of people, not so much landscapes, people, because he just was a people person. And if I can just take that to my grave, I guess, to live life with an excitement that he had, if I can just get a tenth of it, I will be so grateful, because he taught me how to die. He taught us how to handle it. He was courageous and loving until the end. One of the last things he told me, he had this smirk on his face. He wasn't in his right mind, and he thought I was planning something. He said, "You're screwing with me, aren't you?" And that's one of the last looks I saw on his face, which at first I thought might haunt me, but it doesn't, because he had that smirk, and I'm going to miss that smile on his face, that big, beautiful smile he had. So I guess I hope that maybe we can all take, Keith eloquently said what the service meant, but if each one of us could just take the moment, when you're having a bad moment, just maybe get through it and treasure each day, because that's what I think Bruce would want us to do. And just one more thing. I'm sorry I'm long here. When he passed away, and I had written this to some cousins, the weirdest thing, the whole day we were there, the day before he passed away, his hands were warm. The rest of his body was getting cold. His hands stayed warm. And I found that a sign from God that those hands were so special. They created so many songs and art pieces that we all treasure. And it's like God gave those hands strength to the end, and that's how I'm going to think of that. So thank you for this beautiful day. Thanks for all coming, and we just will treasure him forever. Thank you.
Oh, I'll just bend down a little bit. Hi, my name's Steve. I met Bruce about 5 years ago. We ended up having a lot in common, especially baseball. Man, I'm not kidding you, man. So the last time I saw him was about a week and a half ago at the hospice. He couldn't talk, but he could hear. So I brought a baseball and I put it in his hand, and he gripped it the whole time I was there. Man. So Bruce, you crossed the plate, and now you're home. And there's another thing. He was over at Megan and my house a couple years ago, and somehow the conversation got into, when we died, what would we want to come back as? And Bruce goes, believe it, I want to come back as a turkey vulture. I am serious. And I go, and Megan and I go, why? He goes, so I can fly, and I can soar, and I can be free. So I'm really actually, we saw a turkey vulture here during the service, but I'm really hoping that we will see another vulture next week over Carrie's. He was a good guy, in the little time I knew him. Take care, brother.
I gotta follow up on this one, because I'm a private pilot, crash they call me, but I was studying to learn how to really make the aircraft run by the seat of your pants, and so the guy that was training me says, you got to go to Lennox and do some aerobatics. And so I told that to Bruce, and he goes, oh, God, I'd like to go up there. I said, well, someday, let me know. So I don't know, it was about a year later, he cornered me somewhere on Main Street, He says, hey, you still flying? Yeah. He goes, can you take me up? I go, yeah. Tomorrow morning we'll go up there, see what the air looks like. It's nice and smooth like today, talking about turkey vultures. And I said, well, what do you want to go up there for? Because him and I used to have these conversations of God and secular this and that, and we'd have some pretty good ones going. Who's going to be this or believe in that? And so he said, I want to go up there and see what's up there. Okay. So we took off, and we're flying around. There's a cloud over there. He says, go up there. So we flew up there, and kind of watching the cross traffic, because you have to do that when you're flying so you don't run into anybody else. And so we just chased clouds for an hour and a half over Nebraska and then up here and then over in Iowa and stuff. And when we got down landing, he said, now I know what's up there. He says, I always heard about heaven and earth and stuff. And he says, how high did we go? I says, well, we went up to the ceiling, which was 10,000 feet. And he says, yeah, he says, I never been up that high. He said, you know, even if you're in a big airplane, you go through it, but you don't get to linger around in it, you know. And so we always had that connection. I don't know who's, I know we're all going to be in for a big surprise someday, and I know he's up there in the clouds. So I'll just leave it there.
Well, a lot of you don't know who I am. I'm a good friend of Bruce. I met him probably 10 years ago when he was singing down at Cary. And he did a song, my favorite song ever, which is I'm Lonesome I Could Cry. And I went up to him to compliment him on his song. And I told him, Bruce, I'd never heard anybody do it since Hank like that. And he told me later that that's the day we became friends. And he used to like to come out over to my house, and we would drink beer and smoke and listen to old country music. And he told me I had the best jukebox in town. I told him, just get a smartphone, you can have Pandora too. And I'm, like I say, I'm not much of a public speaker, but I did promise Bruce I'd say one thing. And this ain't from me, this is from Bruce. He told me, you got to promise me at my funeral, you tell everybody I drew a good bull. And I think he did. And he kicked that bull all the way. And I think he made his 8 seconds. And I told my son and my daughter today that when I get to heaven, I'm going to go see my mom and my dad and my brother and my son. But the first question I'm going to ask, which honky-tonk is Bruce playing at? I want to see, I'm going to see my buddy Bruce again. And I guess that's all I have to say. We'll all see him again.
You got one, Boyd? Thanks, Terry. Ladies and gentlemen, Boyd Bristow.
R&B Supply was playing at Terry Peak. Now, I can't tell you, we could figure the exact date out because what had happened was there was a huge snowstorm after we got done playing. And so we decided we'd leave the van parked next to the rear door and come back the next day and load the equipment up. Now, Bruce is in this story. He wasn't there at this particular location. I can remember we came back the next day, and it happened to be the day that the United States hockey team beat the Russians in the Olympics, Winter Olympics. Okay, 1984, thank you. Now, it was sheer ice. We were on this hill. We loaded up the equipment. But it was sheer ice, and this was a problem. Now, it did lead into an empty parking lot down this hill, a little bit to the left, you might say. Huge, empty, icy parking lot. But how to get this van down without going off the track because straight behind were trailer houses. And now our sax player, Greg Tesdall, Sid, said, "You better let me drive because I grew up on a farm." And so we did, and Mark Gordon, who is blind, rode with him, I remember. It must have been a heck of a ride because Sid didn't stand a chance. I mean, he thought, well, okay, if I'll just get this thing 5 degrees to the left, it's going to go into this parking lot, but it didn't. It went straight back, hit a trailer house. And so now we had a little problem because the guy was home and we met with him and no insurance agents were called. The idea was he's going to repair his trailer house and we're going to pay him. Okay, we were playing at Dan's back porch. So we took all the money from Dan's back porch and we were $900 short. And so we thought, well, who do we know that has any money? And the only person that we knew at that time that had any money happened to be Bruce Preheim. He wasn't working as a drug and alcohol counselor yet. I mean, I don't think in '84. I mean, he had come by this money, and it was like exactly $900. And he said, "Okay, yeah, I'll send it to you." So he wired us the money. We got the trailer house fixed, and I just wanted to say, the only person we knew that had any money was Bruce Preheim.
I really enjoyed that story. That's pretty funny. I really wasn't going to talk, but then I figured, well, I don't want people to think, well, why didn't the other siblings talk? I'm not going to tell you how great Bruce was. You all know how great Bruce was. It's written through the day. So I'm just going to tell a quick story that popped in my head. I haven't actually thought about for a while. But there was a mention of baseball, and that Bruce, in the eulogy, that Bruce had commented that going to my place was like a sports memorabilia shop. So Bruce and I both enjoyed, as did my whole family, but sports and stuff. Well, anyway, when Bruce was working at Keystone, some of you will know what I'm talking about, some of you won't. He made a very good friend with Don Clendenin. Now, Don Clendenin was the MVP of the Miracle '69 Mets World Series. Don Clendenin got in trouble in South Dakota for cocaine possession and tax evasion and so on. And part of his sentence was to do community work, which got him to Keystone. And I went to Don Clendenin's house with Bruce, and we'd watch Muhammad Ali pay-per-view fights and stuff. Don is a great guy, really good influence on Bruce. Don organizes a Legends baseball deal fundraiser thing in Sioux Falls. And if you followed baseball, you probably know people like, and you're old, Harmon Killebrew, Bob Gibson, Brooks Robinson, Hank Aaron, Willie McCovey. I can go on and on. There's about 30 of them. Lou Brock, they come to this deal. And so Bruce, there were public things, but there were some private things. And Bruce said, Don invited you and me to go to, after they had a benefit softball game, one of the events, go to a private party with those guys, which to me, Brooks Robinson and Bob Gibson are my favorite athletes of all time at that point. And so I thought, that's great. So we go to the thing, and then we go, and I said, now, is this formal? Kind of what people were asking about this. And Bruce says, no, it's after a softball game. It's not formal. So we get directions to this place. Now, this is probably back in about 1984-ish. Well, he was at Keystone, but it was in the 80s, certainly. I was in Hurley. So we drive up. There's electric gates to this mansion that would barely fit in this. And people are in tuxedos and formals and suits, including the baseball players. We're in jean shorts and a T-shirt. Bruce probably had a tank top. So now we don't know what to do. Don't want to pass up on this, but we were clearly out of place. So neither one of us had money. He didn't have $900 at the time. So I said, well, I got a J.C. Penney card. I don't know if I have it with me. Well, I did have it with me. So we go to J.C. Penney's. Now it's in the 80s. And we buy dress pants and a dress shirt and a tie. We figured that's as close as we can afford to get. So we go to a gas station. We change into this. And we rush over there. And we go in. And we're standing in this thing. And there's hors d'oeuvres and champagne and beer and stuff. And I drank a beer with two of my idols. That was pretty cool. Visited with them. They were great guys. But I looked down at one point. I looked at Bruce. And it's 1984. Stuff you bought on the rack came in wrappers. We all had squares and creases in the pants. We looked terrible, and we laughed so hard about that. You know, we thought we kind of pulled it off, but boy, we looked. But it was a great memory. So, just thanks again, everybody. Love you.
Okay, who's next? There are lots of great stories. Anyone? There we go. There you go, Lori.
Hi, I'm Laurie. There's just too much. Everybody knows how wonderful, and he'll be my brother forever. He was my brother forever. And when we talked about and all the stuff that they talked about in the eulogy and him being a dancer and how he makes everyone feel so special, I just remember dancing with Bruce. And our song, whenever they played, Bruce and I, first I back up, I digress. We both have these round pumpkin heads. Bruce had, and we always called each other that, pumpkin head, pumpkin head. So no matter who was out, no matter where we were, and we look across a crowded room when they sang, and this was our song. Are you ready? I'm gonna sing. Nobody ever asks me to come up and sing with them. Whenever I have an egg that I shake, and no one has ever asked me to come and join them. However, this is really bad. I'm going to sing. When they sang, "Oh my, pretty pumpkin head," we sang pumpkin head every time, and we would dance, and our pumpkin heads would bang against each other, and we would hang on. And there was another thing, because he is and was magic, because I remember talking to Mikey after we danced when I was 18, I think, came and just danced with him. And I love to dance, but I don't have skills. But he was dancing, and he was, backing. And I thought, look at me, I'm a good dancer, because I'm dancing with Bruce. He made you dance. And I said, Bruce has got this secret, and it's like he's got, I thought it was just us. I didn't know that this was a thing. He says, when he's dancing with you and he lets up on his back, you go backwards. And when he pushes this way, you go forward. I thought that was Bruce that just figured that out and made that up. I didn't know it was a real thing. And it was like, wow, we are so good, because I figured that, he figured that out. And anyway, it's a code. It was a secret code to my pumpkin head every time I dance. He's my dancing partner.
More stories. They're all fabulous, I gotta say. Anybody? Oh, hey, Bobby Allsgaard's coming on up. Oh, here we go.
I'm the older generation, I don't know all these stories about Bruce. I've heard lots of stories about Bruce, but I wasn't there to really see the stories. But I think I'm his aunt, and the only aunt he has left at this point in time. And I told him that the other day when I was over to visit him when he was in Sioux Falls, and he agreed with me. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I knew Bruce from the day he was born. And so I don't think anybody but his mother probably is here to say that. And so I've known Bruce all his life. He's always been a joy to be around. And I think part of when you talk about his giving, I think that comes maybe from being a twin. We have a lot of twins in our family. But I used to watch Marguerite feed the two of them, and this was the baby food, and she'd have one bottle or jar open, and she would give one a spoon, use the same spoon, there wasn't time to change, so this one had a spoonful and this one had a spoonful, and if she made the mistake of going twice, the other one let her know. So they knew when it was their turn, and they knew when to take a turn. And I don't think that's true of a lot of us that are single, but I think that's something twins learn, and I'm sure Bruce and Keith can both attest to that you have to learn to share when you're a twin. Thank you.
So some of you know me, some of you don't. Bruce and I went to art school together. I've been friends with Bruce since 69. We drew together, we grew together, and Bruce was always, like I said, had the hand of Michelangelo. And he kind of looked like him too, I'm going to tell you. And the reason is because Michelangelo had an instructor that smashed his nose because he was jealous. Okay, so you know, Bruce. But he was incredibly talented. I'm glad you gave him paper. My mother gave me paper, and the thing is, Bruce was always more talented than me. But like I said, I had an imagination. So thusly, to the very end, we had art conversations. And I'm so thankful.
Verno? Hello. I'm called Verno. I don't know. This is a story about Bruce. I hope you find it a little bit entertaining. And I got it from Bruce, and it's about my son. I think there's something special about everybody's paths crossing, and the more your paths cross, the more meaning there is to your relationships. And with many people here that we cross paths on Fridays, very special bunch of people. Bruce was very special in that group. And one Friday, my son's mother and we split up, but I always kept track of my son and tried to be a good influence in his life. And as we grew, it seemed funny, the circles and paths that I had made with people back in the Sioux Falls area. My son's growing up and running around with all my old friends' children, their paths were crossing. And there's this young boy that my son went to school with, Vic, and his father's name was Victor, one of my old friends. And my son was a little too attached to Vic, but he got stuck in this rebound program, school for the troubled people. And so my son, he had to goof off and go with Vic, and they're in this rebound program. And the counselor wasn't there for some reason. I don't know, quit or something. Anyway, they needed a counselor, and so they called Keystone, and they got this guy named Bruce Preheim to come and be the counselor there for a little while. And one Friday at Carrie's, this is years later, okay, I'm going to introduce my son to Bruce and Carrie's, and they look at each other, and they knew each other. Oh, I know your son. I know Bruce, what's going on here, and then I find out about this rebound program. Well, the first day Bruce Preheim goes to be a counselor at Rebound, he's looking for something, and my son and Vic tell him that whatever he's looking for is in the closet. So he goes in the closet to look for what he wanted, and they locked him in the closet. And they left. They left school. And Bruce is the one that told me this. I mean, I didn't get it from my son, no confession there, but he was really glad that I had a good son because he came back a few hours later and let him out of the closet.
And he just said that, he didn't do anything to the kids because they came back and let him out. He was kind of embarrassed that he got locked in the closet anyway, but I thought that was a pretty good story. And my son just called me a little bit ago, so I had to come up and tell the story. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Seth. I'm actually, son of Mrs. Pumpkinhead over there. So, you left the door open. I couldn't not. I grew up with Uncle Bruce. He's still Uncle Bruce. I'm darn near 40. He's always going to be Uncle Bruce to me. I grew up, those who know my mom and my family, for a long time I was only child, single parent. So Uncle Bruce was the male figure in my life. He's the one that taught me fishing. Hey, princess.
Be up here with you.
You can be up here with me. He's the one that took me out, taught me fishing, taught me building. And what just kind of really popped into my head is, I have to push the line a little bit. Everybody likes to tell, Uncle Bruce always got all these great stories. I remember it was Christmas. Made my mom so mad. Okay, Chichi Mikey knows. The first BB gun I ever owned was purchased by Uncle Bruce, and much to my mother's chagrin. And I remember him taking me out every chance we got, every holiday, every summer I was staying at their place. We'd go out shooting it. Oh, I just remember the scowl of death my mom had. But I just thought that was funny. Yeah, he was the, my growth as a male figure, so I really appreciate it. I'll never forget him. Come on.
Quick story. We're in second grade. We had the meanest second grade teacher that ever walked this earth. And she did not like the Preheim twins. But anyway, so art class. We were to paint, or we were to color a picture. I think it was a turkey. I think it was Thanksgiving. And back in those days, art was so creative that 26 kids would paint every feather the same color on those turkeys. When you hung them up on the wall, parents couldn't tell one from the other. They all looked exactly the same. Well, anyway, now this second grade teacher was not happy with one F. You could earn 4 Fs with her for a grade. Bruce got 4 Fs on his. His turkey was all black. And she was so mad at him and just screamed at him, "Why did you paint it all black?" He goes, "It's the only color I have left." He always took his colors home and used them all up at home.
So is everybody happy? We had a heck of a celebration here today. It's going to roll on a little bit more. This evening there's going to be some musicians playing some excellent music in the back of Carrie's. And I'm not so sure, is there anybody else that'd like to get up and tell another story? Okay, Michaeline would like to have you sign the guest book if you want to, but I'd say you should sign it. Bruce always, I know for a fact, he liked to get up to the edge once in a while. And when I accidentally talk back to Michaeline, then I figure I'm at the edge anyway. So hopefully we'll see you folks tonight over at Carrie's Bar out in the beer garden. Trust me, Keith wasn't wrong when he said there are some outstanding musicians going to be there. Got something to say there, buddy? I guess not. Like his dad. Anybody else got anything? Where's the book, Mikey? It's on your 6. All right. Well, without further ado, I'd like to thank everybody that got up, especially Josie for her big, strong statement. That's hard to do, isn't it, Josie? Thank you, everybody. I know Bruce would love it out here. It's a perfect night. I like the breeze, keeps the bugs off of us. So everybody travel well, and hopefully we'll see you at Carrie's. Peace and love, everybody.